Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Hello, Otterites. Welcome back to Snakes and Otters. This is episode 120.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
All right, Robert is here sitting in the captain's chair.
And actually in almost a captain's chair because he's in my recliner.
And it is a comfortable recliner.
It's a good recliner.
It is. We are here at Studio M in the Nakatomi Plaza, just down the hall from Ellis, behind the waterfall.
Yes, on the 30th floor.
On the 30th floor, yes, sorry. Almost got that just perfect, but...
Pretty good. And we're not recording at a table. We're kicked back. We're on the couch.
That's right.
We've got the laptop screen up on the big screen TV so we can kind of follow along with the time. And we are relaxed.
We are. This is probably the most comfortable we have been recording any episode.
Yeah, this is relaxing. This is what I was going for when I decided to switch this away from sitting at the table.
Set the bar. So
this is slick.
Yes.
I like this.
Martin has set the bar high.
Because the long-term plan, guys, is actually to dump this furniture in favor of club chairs.
Oh.
So club chairs would make it kind of dual purpose. It would almost be like home theater chairs.
Uh-huh.
But then also, this comfortable recording studio type thing.
Okay.
Nice.
I like
interesting.
Cool.
Well, I've got that space that has recently been vacated. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do.
Yes, you need to up your studio game in the same manner.
Well, the problem I have with that is that while that is an excellent studio space...
It would be good. It would be very good.
It's in the basement. It's not in the atrium. And I really hate giving up the atrium. But I've not decided.
Yeah, the view is nice, but the space and the comfort would be something.
So we'll have to see. Yeah, because I will admit my accommodations for the atrium are the most lacking of all of our setups.
Well, you have to share.
Exactly. Well,
you're sharing
I don't have to
atrium.
share as much.
Yeah.
So the puzzle room aspect is gone. Okay. Now that the boy has moved rooms and the middle spawn has moved out and bought her own place.
Awesome.
With
property owner.
Love
I tell you what,
she is adulting way better than me and her mom ever did at her age.
Oh,
I mean, she's 24 and she owns her own freaking home.
Isn't that what we all aspire
Absolutely.
to?
She's awesome.
Do better than
Absolutely.
A big salute to middle spawn.
Absolutely. So, anyways,
and a Boo graduate.
And a Boo graduate, yes. So she's vacated. So Beckett, the boy, has moved into. I can call him Beckett. That's all right. He's moved into her old room, and his old room is now where the mother-in-law does her puzzles. So we're still figuring out what we're going to do with the atrium space. And of course, the brother has moved out of that space, which is now the open space that we will possibly use to do this.
So the atrium could work.
It could work.
We can make the atrium work.
We don't know.
An extra TV and some comfortable chairs, and a coffee table, and you can make the atrium work too.
Yeah, the thing is, I have to run that all past Mrs. Robert.
Oh, she's wonderful, of course. So
she is, I think she gets veto rights there.
Well, I understand that.
Well, you have one comfortable chair there already.
We do, and that is a great chair.
It's a great chair. So you just need just a little bit more, a little jiggling here and there, and something here and there, and a little thrift store kind of deal.
We'll have to see what we can do.
Make it work.
So we've spent way too much time on our recording studios.
Yes, we have.
But those are important things to us.
It's fun.
It is.
And again, we stress this that all three of us within the last you've been there 3 years.
3 years
have all moved
to bigger and better things.
To bigger and better homes.
Moving on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. As the Jeffersons would say.
My man, well done.
That's
well
right.
done.
Oh, yeah, I love George Jefferson.
He's a great entrepreneur, George Jefferson.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
And in doing that, we all tried to figure out, I think, okay, when the guys come to record, what are we going to do?
Right.
We had to figure it out.
That's right.
We had to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is second week of the month, which means it's Code of Honor.
Yes, indeed.
This, honestly, guys, this is one of my favorites to captain. Because I love these. I love the freewheeling discussion that we get going with this. Now, being the captain, I can certainly do it this way, but the usual way we do this is one of you guys goes first, and then second, and then I follow up, hopefully with something that will tie it all together. I don't think I failed that yet. I've had a few weak ones here and there.
Perhaps, but no,
I think I do a pretty good job of tying it all together.
They work great. I think you do a tremendous job.
What we've got today is a totally topicless week, because last time we did Lincoln.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I forget what we did the week or the month before.
Hemingway.
Yeah, I knew we had two topical ones in a row.
Which appear occasionally whenever the mood strikes us.
Right. Which is fine, because topical is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great curveball, and it shows that we can pull stuff out of our rear ends from anything.
That's right.
So, Martin, I think you are going first because Francis was still a little undecided, unusually.
I have something now.
Okay.
But of course, I want to make sure I'm not
So
that
you're
far
going to
behind.
spring it on us since we did not hear this.
You didn't hear anything about mine. It will concern justice. I think I
okay.
threw that out there.
Interesting.
So it's a good thing to talk about.
And so Martin has his, which we heard before the show. So Martin, why don't you go ahead and give us your quote?
I always like going first. I don't know, for some reason that just seems to work.
Well, you lay out a pretty good foundation.
Yeah, first
usually relatively short and sweet. Francis takes a little while to get to what his actually is.
Sometimes. A little more build up.
Yeah, a little bit more build up.
A little more. So I kick one out. Francis builds one up, and then you take care of packaging and all. Packaging it all up, and putting the nails in the wall, the nails in the drywall.
That's right.
Mine this time is an aphorism that is commonly attributed to Voltaire, and that is...
That's our man.
Yeah, he's our man.
Love Voltaire.
That is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So this is, again, most of mine are these things that I try to, mostly in work life, get to. Or influence me in some way. But in life, if you try to make everything perfect and squared away, you're often just frozen. Mm-hmm. It's paralysis.
Yeah. Doomed to failure ultimately.
Right.
Yeah. A very good friend of ours has I don't think he subscribes to this anymore, but he used to brag about being a perfectionist and getting everything just right. And I always thought that was silly, for lack of a better word.
Unsustainable. Yeah.
It's unsustainable, and even though I don't know, I can't remember if I had been introduced to this quote by then or not, because you hear this quote all the time. I mean, it's almost a ubiquitous quote in business and motivation.
And as you said in show prep, nearly a cliche.
Nearly a cliche, yeah.
Yeah, very true.
But I always thought that why spend a lot of time perfecting that last 10% when you can move on to something else?
Right. I mean, this comes up everywhere. It's in any kind of project or software development. There's always
especially software development.
The 80-20 rule of, hey, 80% of the people are going to use 20% of the features of this software. Don't worry about that last 20% using these, 80% of these esoteric features. But it comes up in a ton of things in your work life of, hey, at some point we've got to get things finished.
Right.
They don't have to be perfect.
They're never going to be perfect.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Let's get things moving. And, I often talk about the books I'm reading. I've just picked up one off my shelf, Richard Brookhiser's, and I hope I'm pronouncing the Patriot's name correctly. Gouverneur Morris. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how it's pronounced, but of course, one of the founding patriots, and he's a guy who, at the Constitutional Convention, pretty much took the notes.
Yeah.
And then when they were like, okay, we're done, now what? He was kind of the committee of one that sat down and wrote this all out.
Well, somebody's got to do the work,
right? Somebody's got to do it. So, and the Constitution is one of these things. Is it perfect? No, obviously not. We know it's not.
Right. There's 27 amendments, so obviously it's not.
Not perfect. But this was very much in his mind. Again, these patriots influenced by Voltaire to a large degree. But it's in his mind of, this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than what we've got.
Right.
It's going to be pretty good with this one really glaring exception.
Right. Slavery.
Of slavery. Yeah. And because Morris was he was a New Yorker. He was a Northerner, so slavery was bizarre to him. But he's very much it's not going to be perfect, but it's better. It's really good. Let's move forward.
Right. And that's a great example because I think it illustrates what you're getting at very well in this sense. You reach a point, and they were certainly at this point, whether it was at the beginning or closer to the end of the point where this is a very real thing. At some point, they were at that moment in time where it was either piss or get off the pot.
Yes.
It was either we fix this in such a way that it's workable, not perfected, but workable. Because the what we had before, the Articles of Confederation, wasn't working.
Yeah.
So, and they recognized that pretty quickly.
Very much so, yes.
And so we were at that point where we either have to correct it so we can move forward, or we're all going to fall apart into 13 separate countries.
Yeah, because the Constitutional Convention very much could have just collapsed.
Right.
And they all could have went home.
Right, and if it had, we
and said, to hell with all y'all. Yeah, to hell with all y'all. We're just going to do what we're going to do. But there were so many people, just enough people, that said, no, we've got to do something better.
Right. And the something better was so important that they compromised on such a huge issue as slavery.
Yeah. Right, because they recognized that.
Because they realized that there was no way to keep all the colonies together and without maintaining that for now. So, I mean, it's a horrible stain on our history in that sense, but it would have been so much worse
to fall apart.
To
completely fall apart. So, yeah, and when you think about Washington lending his considerable prestige to the project, and when you think about there's so many other voices of, well, but there's not enough guarantees of personal liberty and all this, and Madison saying, look, I'll take care of that on the back end.
Yeah. Right,
I'll take care of that on the back end. Yeah, but vote for this, get this passed, then I've got something to hang those individual liberties off of. Because if it's not there, there's nothing hanging off of anyway. Right. Like we talked about with Lincoln. If you don't save the Union, then I can't free the slaves anyway.
Right.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Get the good first, then we can continue to fix and make better. But if you insist on perfection at the beginning, your endeavor is going to collapse.
And this is probably why so many movements do fail, is because they insist on the perfect instead of the good.
It's the ideological purity test.
Exactly.
Oh, big time. Yes, exactly.
Why does any movement fail or a political party fail? The purity test is a classic example. It's like, yeah, if you kick out everybody that isn't exactly like you, then you have a political party of one.
Exactly. And which, it's amazing that our current two parties haven't collapsed for this reason, because both are made of so many different coalitions.
Yeah.
And they're often at odds with one another.
But that's what it takes to survive. I mean, that's why the Whigs collapse. They're pretty much a one-issue thing.
They are, at least for now, to a certain degree, there's an ideological purity that is required.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even within that ideological purity, it's mainly because the two sides are so far apart that nobody wants to be in that middle ground anyways.
Yeah.
So you kind of say, well, screw it, I got to be over here, otherwise my voice isn't going to get heard. So it amazes me that the enemy of the good, the perfect, has not yet overwhelmed either party. Although sometimes I think it's come close.
It's close.
But that's a great thing. One of the other things about this phrase that I think is so poignant, because you mentioned software development. The most hated term for me in software development today is minimum viable product.
Oh, really?
Yes, because it is at the core, the very heart, which is what core means in Latin. Core is heart. It's at the very core of software development to have agile development, the minimum viable product, which means get that 20% out there that the 80% will use. But so often, nobody goes back and adds in anything else. And so you have a product that's sometimes half-assed and doesn't do everything you need it to do, but it covered enough that it got you through the product. And then everything else goes on what they call a backlog.
Yeah.
But nobody ever gets to the damn backlog because they're on to the next minimum viable product.
Yeah, the agile development lessons and minimal viable product. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I know too this seems contradictory because we often talk about don't half-ass anything. Whole ass one thing instead of half-assing a bunch of stuff. Whole ass one thing. So I know it seems contradictory, but it sometimes you just got to remind yourself, okay, don't be perfect, make it good, and then you can always improve it.
Exactly. That's the Constitution in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It really is. That's why there was a mechanism to amend it.
Yeah. And Voltaire is, again, this in the English-speaking world, he's commonly attributed to this idea, but it goes back to Aristotle, Confucius. He's stealing it from Italians. So it's a concept in philosophy that goes back
way back,
thousands of years.
Yeah, millennia of get something good moving. And don't get frozen by perfection.
And I think most of the people who are in the trenches recognize that. That's why it's almost a cliche, because people who actually have to do the damn work or have to deal with the consequences of trying to create the perfect.
Yeah.
They realize, no, I could do so much more if you just let me go off and do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm experiencing it at work. I'm kind of Mr. Fix-It right now. There's a lot of, hey, Martin, this is all screwed up. How about if you fix this?
I know exactly what you mean. My team at work is exactly the same way. We are almost a catch-all for anything that's not the core business. And so we do so many different things.
Right.
So many different things.
Somebody's got to have the smarts.
That's true. Not everybody can handle the stuff that we do.
Yeah, fix it up and... okay, then it won't be such a disaster, and then we'll move you to something else that's a disaster and let you fix that.
Exactly. So, that's I think a good cover of what you're talking about. At least, do you agree, Martin? Because obviously,
yes. I'm definitely trying
Francis,
to hand
let's
the
move
baton
on to you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me time now.
Yes, do you have your quote? Yes.
Well, I do have my quote right here. It's different. It's one of my favorite people, though, and we've talked about him before, Robert Kennedy. We're talking about justice. And it was Robert that we were talking in the show prep, and I'm thinking, what should we talk about? And he's got this really nifty little book over here of wonderful quotations. And you just kind of threw out, you can be about this, and the word justice pinged my ear. I said, okay, I'll bite. What do we got on this? And so, with that in mind, here's a quote. Teensy bit long.
Shortest preamble ever.
Yeah.
Short, but meaningful. Here's my quotation. The glory of justice and the majesty of law are created not just by the Constitution, nor by the courts, nor by the officers of the law, nor by the lawyers, but by the men and women who constitute our society. They are the protectors of the law as they themselves are protected by it.
That's good.
I like that.
Yeah, Kennedy.
Repeat that last part, because that's the crux of it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's the money.
The men and women who constitute our society. The glory of justice and the majesty of the law are created by the men and women who constitute our society. They are the protectors of the law as they themselves are protected by it.
The thing about the law, I'm not an attorney, of course, but I do view the law as something that ought to be above those who live under it.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Well,
I think, do you understand where I'm
equal justice before the law. I mean,
no man is above the law.
That's right.
Yeah, no one is above
Everyone
the law.
Everyone is entitled to its protections and must be given it.
But it's all of our duty to protect the law in the same way that the law than
Protects
to
us.
protect us.
That's what Kennedy was saying. Yes.
And I think, we view ourselves as these cultural critics, critics of this moment in time, and the law is often seen as an obstacle, an impediment to whatever goal there is out there. And it's not seen as something that's protecting us from the consequences of whatever goal is out there.
Well, it's very, Woodrow Wilson, again, to go back to your, will allow you to swing at the pinata once again.
The pinata's
he
full
was
of candy.
notorious for that.
Yeah.
The Constitution in particular was and should be modified based on whatever issue we find ourselves facing at a given time.
Yes.
He did not see that is a protection.
Right.
It's a limitation. It's a framework that which you monkey with at your peril.
Right.
Thomas More said this at his trial when he was told by Thomas Cromwell, ironically, that the law was a light to see More's own wrongdoing. And More correctly, very quickly, he says the law is not a light for you or any other man to see by. It's not an instrument of any kind. It is a causeway to which, as long as the citizen keep to it, he may walk safely. It's exactly the same thing Kennedy is saying right here. Oh, you're bound to me. Oh, isn't this wonderful? You guys know I know Thomas More.
Listen, there's not every podcast on this earth is going to bring up Cromwell and More and Robert Kennedy and Voltaire all within 10 minutes.
Well, that's right.
But that is a magnificent Thomas More. An absolutely magnificent Thomas More. The law is a causeway.
That's right.
For your safe passage through life.
That's right.
And again, Wilsonians in general did not view the Constitution as a framework,
it's a causeway.
A causeway. It was viewed as an obstacle to what I want to get done.
That's right. And
let's sweep this aside because I know best.
There's the hubris again. We haven't used that word in a
while.
Oh,
I love the word hubris.
One of our favorites.
Pull it in.
But it's exactly what Wilson is
Testify,
operating
brother.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what he's talking about. He says, those of us, let the adults handle this. Those of us who know better, we can mess with this.
Yeah, all of you rubes out there in the hinterlands, you don't know how to live your life.
Let us take care of that for you. Which, of course, is a euphemism. Let us control you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One man's care is another man's control.
Absolutely.
Kind of like that. That's good. I just
that's the thing. The law, so to speak, has always been used either as a tool for justice or a hammer of oppression. Mm-hmm. Not hammer in the Robertus Malleus way.
I'm glad you clarified that. Yes, that's right.
A hammer as a form of punishment.
Yeah, an instrument, as More himself said.
Exactly.
A blunt instrument.
Exactly, and far too often, even the good is conceived of as that way, and as a blunt instrument. So what we do for a good purpose, as opposed to
the ends
trying
to
lift up, it's a blunt instrument that becomes a tool of punishment that often ends up punishing all instead of just...
Some must be sacrificed so others can be saved. We've all heard a lot of those quotations that go with it.
Absolutely, and that is always some are above the law and some are under it.
That's right.
Because notice, those who say those sorts of things are never any of the ones that get sacrificed.
That's correct. That's exactly right.
So, it's very poignant. And honestly, I think that works very well with Martin's quote, because I think I've got one that's going to work really good.
Oh, good. We're hoping to set this up.
They are. That's a pretty big bridge right there. A pretty big chasm to bridge.
Yes. So, but before we do that,
and it's pretty awesome. You're going to have to go a ways because he didn't just quote Kennedy. He then tied it to Thomas More.
Well,
this is a really Francis bright spot here.
I'm in awe. Anytime it brings More in is a fantastic thing. The only thing that would have made that better is if you tied in Aquinas.
He did more from memory.
Well, I can do. Yeah, I can do.
That's true.
That was not listeners, Otterites. He didn't have that at his fingertips on Wikipedia. That was from memory.
Right.
Exactly. The man Francis, of the three of us, has the best memory for quotes.
He has a copious memory.
Well, thank you for that.
Now, granted, it's mostly tied up with Star Trek quotes.
Well, in full disclosure, guys, when I sit here and say, some must be sacrificed so that others may be saved, that's Kodos the Executioner.
Right, well, Kodos the Executioner and just about every despot who ever
Well, that's
lived.
right, but it's from Star Trek, The Conscience of the King, which is an excellent episode.
It is.
It talks about a lot of this sort of stuff.
It's got a little bit of Shakespeare in it. How can you not love it?
Well, absolutely, yes.
So, anyways, love it. I just love when we can bring Star Trek into it somehow. And Conscience of the King. Just to bring this, that's a great title because the conscience of the king is so important in all of this, because law and justice, how it's executed, is done under the conscience of the ruler.
Right. Yeah.
If you have a good ruler, whether it's a king or a president or a dictator, a good conscience forgives many sins, both literally and figuratively.
Well, yeah. Justice Department, if you want to go lawyer, it doesn't have to be one person. It can be an entire administration, an entire legal system that recognizes the value of justice and mercy together.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've said it many times. When given the choice between justice and mercy, I'll take mercy every damn time.
Every single time, that's correct.
Every damn time. Matter of fact, Moore, he was very much a proponent of that, in that he said very famously that yes, he would give the devil his due, so that when his turn, he would be given the same consideration.
That's exactly
it's
right.
It's not a quote. I can't quote that one exactly, but that's essentially the point. You give everyone their due under the law.
Right. For your own safety's sake.
For your own safety's sake.
And
every defendant has these rights because someday you might be the defendant.
Yeah, there's prophetic in Moore's case, very much
Very
so.
prophetic, yes.
And that was something that he communicated to his son-in-law Roper, who that's where the quote comes from, is Roper's Life of Moore. So a lot of those good stuff came from that.
Excellent, gentlemen. You guys have some great quotes.
Yeah, I'm sensing you want to take a bourbon break.
I do. I want to take a bourbon break.
Well, yeah, because we can't. Otherwise, we're unleashing the Kraken, and you're going to roll. I know
That's
this.
right.
We have to
And
stop
we
now.
have to stop because
if we don't,
I think you guys are going to like my quote. I really.
well,
do.
we always do. But yeah, I always love to see
Well, I think
reasons.
sometimes my quotes are a little, for you guys they may seem pulled out of my ass.
I was about to say that same thing. You're going to say he's going to say
But your
he's
ass
going to
is
pull it out
pretty
of his ass.
eloquent.
It is. I do have an eloquent ass. My wife especially likes it.
Good for you.
Yes, because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate.
Yeah, very true. Yes, very true. And my wife's the only one who is allowed to like that ass. Let me
Okay,
tell you.
very fair. Totally fair.
Well, there's a different level of like that we're talking about here. So, yeah. I mean, you can certainly admire from afar.
Okay, afar is fine.
Yeah, afar is fine. That's how she's best, with other people admiring my ass.
Well, certainly, Mrs. Robert is entitled to that level.
She has
of
first
respect.
dibs, most
Yes.
definitely. So, bourbon break time. Since last episode, the captain went first, so being the captain, I will go first
Go
this
right
time.
ahead.
So, once again, I'm drinking Martin's Quarter Horse, which is such a great name for a bourbon.
Yep.
We're in Kentucky, which is the only place true bourbon can be made.
Amen.
Contrary to what the law may say.
Quarter Horse Reserve, O.Z. Tyler Distillery, Owensboro, Kentucky.
Did we finish off your bottle of it finally?
No, there's still some
Still
left.
some left.
Just
yeah.
curious.
Some for next time.
When we do the next set of episodes, we'll definitely have some to do.
I'm very, very happy to have you guys back here. You got to see Wilson the Wonder Doodle.
It did, yes.
He was all over Francis. It was.
I heard.
It was
I heard.
delightful. It was delightful.
I'm so disappointed I missed that.
Yes, I'm sure you are. Yes.
And Otterites, in case you missed it, Wilson the Wonder Doodle is our new puppy. He's gone from 5 pounds to about 25 pounds. He's as
Yes,
soft.
in just the 3 months since we've been here.
Yes, he's soft as a cotton ball.
Yes.
And he loves people, and I'm sure he was all over
Oh,
you,
he
Robert.
was. He
Oh,
was.
and Robert enjoyed the hell out of that.
Oh, I did.
Robert and I are dog people. Our man Francis here isn't.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
But for you brown coats, his dog is named Inara. So
right.
you gotta like that.
And I love Inara. She loves
She's
Martin and I.
Yeah,
does,
she's
very
most
much.
people
She's very,
Yes.
She's very, very subdued and mellow at most of the time, and very earnest, and just a good dog. She doesn't. I don't think I've heard her bark maybe twice in her entire 12 years of life. And she just doesn't
She's
do
so
it.
energetic for 12 too.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she got Cushing's disease, and that messes with her a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But
That's
she's
a great dog.
well.
Yeah.
When you all see her, she's energetic because she loves you all. She just goes nuts.
True.
When you all
There's a
come
lot
over.
to that. Yes.
Yeah, she's much more of a mellow dog most of the rest of the time.
Yes. Bosco is the same way. When Trish comes over, he just goes nuts. Just goes crazy over her. I walk in the door, it's like, you're back.
Oh.
You know?
Oh, it's you again.
Oh, we have a really great greeting every day when Mrs. Martin and I return from work. Now Wilson the Wonder Doodle is Mommy's dog, so he does run past Martin here and go to Mrs. Martin.
Yeah.
But he is happy to see us both.
So I have a similar thing. Bosco was supposed to be my dog. Not so much. He's Mama's dog. He's a Mama's dog.
Well, yeah. Well, you all know that Anara's always been Mama's dog.
Yes,
has
yes.
been from the beginning. And,
Yeah.
Yes, no matter
Well,
how much she loves
that's
you.
what Wilson
Yes.
was intended to be. Was
So
Mama's
quarter
buddy.
horse. So good stuff.
Mhm.
The more you have of it, I think the smoother it goes down.
I
think,
agree.
It's an interesting thing in that other bourbons start out smoother. I think this one, as you acclimate to it, does a really good job
Okay.
of smoothing itself out, for lack of, and maybe just get used to that initial explosion, for lack of a better word. Because, like I said in the last episode, it really hits you immediately.
there's a sting of the tongue
A
that
bit,
takes
yes,
place
a bit,
when
yes.
it comes on.
Yeah,
it's not a
it's-
bad thing. It's
it's
just
very-
that's just what it is.
Yeah, very active on the tongue.
Yes.
Even with ice, it's active on the tongue, and
You don't have to wait for the payoff.
yeah, woodsy. Not as complex as a Woodford, but that's good stuff.
It's certainly not medicine-y.
No.
No.
We have never.
I like
we
it.
have never done that. We've never found a medicine-y bourbon that we've experienced here on the show.
Yeah,
I think you've spoken of some in the past.
yeah, and not to throw a particular brand under the bus publicly, but I'm not a big fan of Buffalo Trace.
You've spoken of that. Yeah.
That's the one that really has to me.
That has a very good reputation.
yeah,
though.
it does, but it has a medicine-y taste to me.
That's interesting.
We'll give it a shot at some point,
Yeah, we
I'm
should-
sure, and we'll see if that can be rehabilitated or reevaluated.
Well, since the recording at my place, where we had the disagreement over the
Jim
being
being
black,
Yeah.
and realized that there is a difference when you put the ice in it, that it really does change it. Certain maybe
Maybe
ones
that's
that
what
are
we
not
need to
our
do.
favorites, we need to revisit and try different ways.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Because I think that would be a very good bourbon episode. We haven't done a bourbon episode in a while.
Well, we all take the same bourbon and try it completely different ways and see.
Well, and back and forth.
And back and forth. That's right. Yeah.
Try it neat, then we try it on ice.
Right.
Certainly, we're not going to do anything where we mix. But
No, that's just something that's totally different.
yeah, that's for
You
lower end
know,
bourbon.
this is really, really, really now pointing us toward the Bourbon Festival in Bardstown.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's in
Because
September,
I
if
want
recall
to,
correctly.
yeah, I mean, Bardstown proclaims itself the bourbon capital of the world.
Yes.
And I'm not going to argue with them
Not at all.
because I love Nelson County.
That's where I grew up.
Francis's
That's right.
old
High
stomping
school right
grounds.
there. Yeah.
I love Nelson County bourbon. I love Nelson County restaurants. So
And bars.
and bars. I plug for Mammy's Kitchen
Oh
and
yeah,
Bar.
love Mammy's. It's great. Great location.
I've been there a couple of times, and I had a treat this last time that I've written about on the blog, and that is the cornbread mafia burger.
Yeah.
Oh, this thing, cornbread bun, burger, tomatoes, pickles, onions, and coleslaw. It's insane. It's insane.
All of those flavors together sound awesome. I have a hard time with the coleslaw, but I'd be willing to at least try that.
Yeah, you've got to because
Is it finely shredded or is it a coarser?
it's chopped up, fine shred coleslaw.
See, I could probably do that.
You would like it. So you've got a little bit of sweet in the cornbread. You got a little bit of sweet in the slaw. Then you got onion. Then you got pickle. Then the burger's just good on its own.
Right.
Now it's supposed to come with Swiss cheese. I had to delete the Swiss cheese.
Right, yeah.
My gastrointestinal thing. It's just insane. insane flavors all together that work, and it's just nuts. I've never had anything
when
like
it's
it.
complicated,
Yeah.
it's good.
I've never had
It's
anything
Trevor
like
When
it.
it comes to flavors, yes,
That's right,
I would
yeah.
agree with that. So, proposal
Yes.
for the next in-town road trip for Snakes and Otters.
Yeah.
We need to go to the new Kalen's.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Kalen's 80/20.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's where the old Kalen's was.
Right.
Yes. It's just
supposedly the home of
the
the cheeseburger.
Yeah, they invented
under
it.
new
supposedly.
ownership. A stone's throw from Boo.
A stone's throw, yes. And I've been there on Deacon Night with the guys, and it was excellent.
And you know,
It's been several years since I've been,
Yeah.
and it's always been great.
Yeah.
Boo is having alumni weekend soon,
Oh, yes.
and that might be a thing. We may have to consider that.
Yes, I think
Snakes
that's an
and
excellent
Otters.
idea.
Snakes and Otters return to Boo for alumni night.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. In victory of some sort.
Yeah, yes.
So
Absolutely.
It's and I'm thinking about the. There's always a program of the honors section, the honors program, Cardinal
section, yeah, that's right.
It's just called honors program, where the honors students present some of their work, and
well, bring it on.
that
Land
sounds-
upon us.
that sounds like something we may have to sign up for, gentlemen.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea. Why don't you get on that?
That's right. Good,
I
good
have
idea,
it,
Lord.
the email and everything's right here.
All right,
We'll
well,
have to look
forward
at
that to us. Let's circulate that, and let's try and make that happen.
Let's
I
see
would
if we
love it.
can't think that
Okay.
through.
So, let's get back to Code of Honor.
Transitions, huh?
So, my quote, you're going to love. Who's it from? The great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
More Lincoln.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So, we're hitting the biggies
That's right.
today.
The
So,
giants.
the best way to get a bad law repealed is to enforce it strictly.
Oh, Lincoln! Oh my gosh! Absolutely, it's so awesome.
He was he's a master of the witticism.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely that's right.
But it's so poignant. So now, before I go into this, I meant to do this before I gave you my quote. So, Martin, yours was, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
Francis, just give us the money quote, because yours is a bit long.
Oh, well,
The end is the
you
important
call
part.
me back to that one because it's too complicated to be able to pull
To
out.
do my memory, I get that. I'm sorry, I should have
No, that's okay.
given you
know,
a bit of a warning ahead of time.
No, I didn't.
So the perfect is the enemy of the good. Don't let it be the enemy of the good. And
Right, and the glory of justice and the majesty of law are created by the men and women who constitute our society. They are protectors of the law and are themselves protected by the law.
Okay.
Protectors of the law and protected by
I
the
love
law
that
are
part.
the people.
I
That's
love
that's
that.
the real important
No
part.
man is above the law. That's a good summation
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
it, as we
it is.
put
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's a far more poignant way to put it.
Yeah, it's-
So, how does that relate to the best way to get rid of a bad law is to enforce it strictly? So that's just actually a paraphrase of that, because to get a bad law repealed. So I love that quote because it's there's so much wisdom in that. First of all, because it's so true when we look at bad laws. Let's think of the big ones. Slavery.
Yeah.
It was absolutely repealed.
Mm-hmm.
And the freedmen were given the right to vote. And there were certain restrictions put in place to help provide for them. Now, granted, it didn't work out as well as it could have after the first 10 or 15 years, but the foundation was put in place to correct that.
Right.
To correct that injustice. Let's look at prohibition. Eventually that was repealed because it was a stupid law. Prohibiting something that everybody likes is just going to drive it underground.
Well, that's very Wilsonian too. Let us
Yes.
control you, which was right. Even though Wilson didn't do it, it's right around the
Well,
same
it grows
time.
out of
It
that
grows,
era.
Yeah, it grows out of that progressive era.
Yeah,
Right,
it
exactly.
does.
Yeah, even though it was Harding and his wife.
Well,
Wilson.
in very many ways, prohibition is a very fascist thing. To harken back to last week,
Yeah.
because it was a way to help corral the morals run amok in
Yeah,
society. And what does it do? Causes them to run amok even more.
That's right.
So a temperance movement of any sort at its core is fascist. Oh no! I just did
wow.
something generalizing that
No, yeah.
we always rail
Well,
against. Is
a
generalizing.
temperance movement is something. The word movement implies people are doing it of their own volition. A
Yes.
temperance law, on the other hand, is imposed, and that's where you get into the issue.
So
The imposition of temperance.
That's correct. That's right.
So-
which
so-
can only be done by law.
Is this a snakes and otters position in favor of marijuana legalization?
No.
Not necessarily.
No. It shall not be.
I am somewhat mixed on that for many reasons. Not the least of which is that the anti-drug laws, as they are currently constituted, have been largely ineffectual.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we need to repeal all of them, but they obviously don't work well.
I believe, yes, it's something to examine.
Yes.
I mean, is marijuana a wonderful thing? No.
Well,
were a lot of the original anti-marijuana, in particular marijuana, not every narcotic, but were they rooted in a racism? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we do from here? I don't know.
Right. And once you've let the genie out of the bottle, where it's legalized in some places, even though that's only the state level,
yeah,
it's still illegal federally. Under whatever that provision might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's still on the DEA schedule, and you just,
everybody just turns a blind eye. So once you start that, I don't know that you can ever go back.
Yeah.
Maybe it is time to legalize it, and federalize it and tax the hell out of it.
Is it any more damaging than alcohol?
The arguments for it say that it is not. However, I have problems with any drug, alcohol or marijuana or any others, that saps the human drive and spirit. And marijuana is very, very effective. You can see it in the eyes of so many who consume great quantities.
Any mood-altering substance,
correct,
it can do that.
That's right.
So then that would imply that getting rid of alcohol, because it is definitely the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And certainly seems to cause more harm and death than marijuana on its own. Because, you smoke a doobie, you're going to sit home and just, eat potato chips on the couch. That's your ambition, so to speak. Certainly things that ramp up your mood. So amphetamines, things like that. Things that, so you can make the argument that nothing that does that should be allowed. Well, where does that stop? Because then you got to look at forms of entertainment to do the same thing.
Well, I mean, you get all the way to caffeine. It's a stimulant.
Exactly.
Why is
so
it
you have to
legal?
be I think you have to be careful with those sorts of things because, again, best way to get a bad law repealed is to enforce it strictly. So, to get back to tying it to you guys. So, obviously, there are plenty of bad laws. Not all of them, unfortunately, have been repealed, but a lot of the bad laws do get ignored because, rather than repeal it, we realize how stupid they are. Often that has come from the strict enforcement.
Yes.
At one time, women were considered property. And I've heard, I don't know that this is true, but I've heard that even in this state, there are still laws on the books that are just totally ignored that would make women the property of their husbands.
Yeah.
Which, any husband who wants to keep his testicles would definitely not try and get that law enforced.
Yeah.
Because it's stupid. On its face, it's an asinine law, and we've come to realize that. That's one that we don't need to repeal. Although, it's a feel-good moment to repeal that sort of thing. Not to say it shouldn't be, because, it's why even have that on the books? But also, why take up the time to take care of it? So, if there's a law that is really bad, and you start enforcing it strictly, people will rebel against it. The entire, to harken back to last week, communism.
Yes.
It's been repealed in Russia. Not everywhere, unfortunately, but it's recognized as bad by most societies, except those who are in control of it.
It's the ash heap of history.
Exactly. A 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, totally ignored. So now, in places where it is all highway, it is repealed and now made a higher limit that, is also now ignored. So one state even tried to take the speed limit and repeal it entirely so that unsafe driving was basically the rule. But that was struck down because that was too arbitrary.
Yeah.
Montana.
Montana, yes. It was one of the western states.
Yeah. Love Montana. Hello, Montana Otterites.
So the perfect often is that bad law.
Yeah.
That we are seeking.
Yeah.
And sometimes we end up having the perfect.
Prohibition is an attempt to perfect the human.
Exactly.
And it doesn't
impossible.
work.
And we've seen how that then becomes the enemy because it basically created organized crime.
Yeah.
To the level we have it today.
Yeah.
And
we had it good. We tried to make it perfect, and
we screwed it up.
Screwed it all up.
Exactly. And so we can see that that's a concrete lesson in your quote, Martin, that if we try to perfect something that goes against human nature, it's going to screw up things. Because it's going to be human nature to seek some relief from the drudgery of day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Not everybody experiences that drudgery. Certainly not the same level of drudgery, but there's always somebody's going to be seeking some kind of an escape. And the more illicit you make it, the more likely it's going to be sought out. And that brings us to Francis.
Yes.
So, equal protection under the law. Bad laws tend to tar the good ones.
Yeah. It diminishes the law in the eyes of those who should be upholding it.
Exactly. It diminishes it. It can trivialize it so that even the good laws people want to throw out. Take the extreme libertarian movements. We all have a bit of a soft spot in our hearts for that because we all chafe at restrictions, and some of us more so than others. Martin, and he's our resident.
I have the broadest libertarian streak of the three of us.
Do.
Yeah,
and
I don't consider myself a libertarian, but I have the broadest sympathies with a libertarian.
Exactly.
Good.
And we all sympathize with it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing libertarians ever agree on is there's only one libertarian in the room.
Exactly. Everybody else is an extremist control freak. So that desire to get rid of the bad law, because it's been so badly and strictly enforced, has then led to let's get rid of all law, which is the danger that Francis is talking about.
Yeah.
Because when you get rid of all, it's actually both. You either get rid of all law or you enforce all law. Sometimes unequally is the problem, but because sometimes it becomes so unjust that it does have to be getting rid of. But when you want to get rid of all bad law or all law, then you're picking and choosing what you want. Because you're going to say, well, all law is bad, but you know what? I kind of like this one over here because it benefits me.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where Francis's situation comes into play, where some people are more equal under the law than others. It's like, all in Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yes. Right.
And
4 legs good, 2 legs better.
Exactly. And I think this is just...
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right. We're at this moment of the law isn't respected. It's used instead as a dodge or a bludgeon, depending on your goal.
Right. It's who you want to punish.
Yep.
And, that's a very Western way of looking at the law. It's punishment. As opposed to the Roman... not like Roman Catholic. I mean, all the Catholics do because that's the basis of church law. You set the ideal, knowing that this is what you're shooting for.
Yeah, that's right. And you do, and everything is measured how closely or not it
you
applies
can get
to that. That's right.
And Americans can't wrap our minds around that because it's like, well, how do you break the law? And it's like, well, sometimes that's a little subjective.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to sin, obviously. But this whole idea though that the best way to get a bad law repealed is to enforce it strictly.
Enforce it, and then everybody understands
you can see it.
How bad it is.
And the bad law is often that trying to perfect things.
Yeah.
There's a presumption then with bad law that the badness that's inherent in it is in some way self-evident.
Yes, that's the right word.
Well, and sometimes it's not self-evident though until you enforce it.
Until you enforce it, that's the requirement.
Right.
Once you enforce it, then it's
that which was perhaps only partially evident becomes completely evident.
Yes,
and
the
bad law,
inequality becomes inevident.
And that's what bad law
self-evident.
does. Bad law legalizes, in many cases, not all cases, I'm sure, but in the situations we talk about, it legalizes the inequality so that we're talking about prohibition. When you talk about that, only the rich can afford to go to these gin joints or get out of it when they get raided. Right. So the law is applied unequally, to use Francis's point. Or slavery.
Or a lot of ways, even marijuana prohibition laws are I mean, it's self-evident that, yes, these laws have affected the black community in a way that it does not affect the white community.
And it's not because black people use drugs more than white people. It's applied
applied to them differently. It's applied inequitably. And therefore, when you see that strict enforcement, that maybe these laws are bad. Maybe there is some other way to do this.
Right.
It's not saying that marijuana is great, but it is saying maybe these laws are crafted imperfectly. Let's find a way to be good about it.
Right. And so you look at that, you look at slavery and how that by its very nature legalizes inequality.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
And enshrines it in the Constitution. Institutionalizes it in a way that is,
that's the right word,
so incredible that we have to fight a civil war to get rid of it. And sometimes that's what comes of strictly enforcing that bad law. Just being black in some states in the South made you a slave, whether you were freed or not.
And then later made you a criminal.
Yes.
Even after you were free, it's just you were a criminal whether you committed a criminal act or not.
Exactly. So, these bad laws, especially when you start enforcing them strictly, always end up producing unequal application.
And then once that is self-evident, then you get a chance to abandon the quote perfect that you thought was perfect.
Exactly.
And maybe you can go back to something that is good.
Shoot for the good.
Mm-hmm. And then that makes where the law can be respected by all.
Exactly. And really that's the whole point. The law should not be the bludgeon. The law should be
the causeway.
The causeway can be the boat that keeps us all from drowning.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be both. It has to be the shield,
as well as the spear.
That keeps you safe, but also the spear that then genuinely protects the innocent.
Well, the shield should protect the innocent, but the spear should be the point upon which the guilty are, quote unquote, impaled. Not literally. Not advocating for capital. Capital.
No, we would call you Vlad.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm not advocating that. But I'm not advocating for the death penalty for all people who break the law. It's a metaphorical.
You're not Frank Castle.
Exactly. I'm not Frank Castle. Although he does have a nice gun collection.
Yeah. Robert, let me tell you something. I've had 2 glasses of bourbon, but this is a very stimulating discussion here.
Well, thank you.
You did great, Robert.
Well, thank you. I think it had to stretch that a little bit to get all the way around, but I think it worked well.
Yes.
You've hammered it in place once again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so in awe of Francis here and what he's brought up. There's a lot of meat on that bone to work through.
Yeah.
And Robert, you set a nice table and gave everybody a nice slice.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, when you're working with Abe Lincoln, it's hard not to do well.
I mean,
it really is.
It's so pithy and so full
we hit
of goodness.
Voltaire, Thomas More, Robert Kennedy, and Abraham Lincoln. Did I miss anybody that we
got
talked
them all,
about?
yeah.
Okay, so
that's pretty amazing.
all
That's
in the
pretty
space
good.
of one episode.
Yes, not bad. 54 minutes.
Yeah.
Of,
So we're going a little bit long.
a complete analysis of the role of law in civilization.
Yeah. Who else can do that in under an hour?
Nobody, baby. Nobody.
Right,
man.
we got this, man. We all over this.
Francis, what's next?
We want to talk about justice. We're going to talk about one of the greatest bringers of justice in our American history. This is kind of a little bit overdue. It's a Heroes episode next time, and we talked about Lincoln last time, and we kind of said, we need to talk about Frederick Douglass. because this is the guy that really, in many respects, led to Lincoln finding and articulating that conscience of his that led to all the changes that came.
Exactly.
The man was brilliant. He is truly one of the founding fathers of so much of the freedoms that we enjoy today came from his wisdom. We're going to explore him deeply next time. Enjoy it. We'll see you then.
Hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.